Good afternoon, everyone. It's Gary from Soccer Pro. Today, I have the pleasure of having Sasi Kumar with me from the Sports Mentor Coach. He is an expert at getting private coaches an extra $20,000 into their business in 90 days or less. So I'm really excited to have him on here. I know this is a tough time for everyone. And Sasi, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, I'd really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm super pumped to be here to be sharing all the information that I've been doing with a lot of coaches. My background is I was an international soccer player. I'm based out of Singapore. So I played 35 times for the Singapore national team. I was a professional player for 12 years. But since retiring from the game, I started a sports marketing agency and grew from me just being one person to a $10 million business when I exited it in 2016. Since then, I've been actually helping a lot of sports coaches around the world, especially in North America, put a bit more money into their practice, exactly $20,000 into their practice in less than 90 days. So I've got a 3-step framework that I've used, and I've packaged all my experience as a sports entrepreneur. I've put everything together so that the coaches don't have to try and figure out themselves. And it's really working. I've had clients from Europe and, like I said, North America. And just last week, one of my students, if I can call him that way, just in a matter of 7 days, he spent $50 on Facebook ads and pulled in $3,000 in his sports coaching business. So pretty awesome.
That's great.
I'm really happy to be sharing this with you and your audience today.
So basically what you have is a step-by-step system that people are utilizing in their business. And how long have you been using this system and helping people in this industry?
Gary, I'll give you a quick backstory to this, right? Some context to this. For a long time in my business, of course, I started my entrepreneur career also having my own soccer school. I started with 4 kids and ended up having 280 kids in my system and also pulling in $100,000 in sponsorship money from a pizza company here. So I've experimented with a few things, and I'm a big framework and systems guy. And when I looked at the sports coaching business, a lot of the sports coaches, they really struggle with growing their business. Let's not forget, if you are a single coach and trying to build a business, you got to be delivering. Of course, you got to be conducting sessions on the pitch or wherever you are on the court. But at the same time, you got to be working on your business. And you know that too. It's not easy. There's only a limited amount of time. So if you don't have frameworks and systems in your business, it's going to be really hard to grow it to a level where you feel it's worth your time. And of course, you can see the real labor, success of your labor. So what I've done is that I have really put this together. I must say since 2018, I've been helping a lot of coaches around the world. So I would say that, in 2018, I introduced this framework. I validated this idea. Now we've got a few students all around the world. And that's why we are here. I want to bring it to your audience to see exactly. I will explain as we go along with this conversation exactly how that works and how people can get access to it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about what's happening in this industry, of course, is it's geographic centric. So you can take the same essential formula, the same basic formula, and you can move it from place to place to place, and it'll keep working because it's not like you're doing it right next door to someone else. Or if you have an internet-based business, of course, you are competing with the world. But when you're doing private coaching, you're very much geographically centralized, and your customers are only going to come from a certain distance from your location. So, this is one of those cases where can you take a step-by-step model, a proven model that someone else has used, and do the same thing without oversaturation? And I think that this is the perfect type of environment for this model because, again, what works in Boston or in California or Texas is going to work in a different location just because you're not competing with those other people that are using the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that, sports coaches, I've spoken to hundreds of them on what I call strategy sessions, just to deep dive into their business and find out what the real pain points are. And I can tell you that, for a fact that a lot of them, they don't have that single-mindedness. They don't have a $1 million message in their business. they end up saying, Sasi, you know what? Let's say I'm a soccer coach. I coach anyone. Let me tell you this, Gary. That's the fastest way to go out of business, because you're not a specialist. You're not super ultra, I would say, focus on who you really serve, who you're going to be a hero to. We all know the market is saturated with a lot of sports coaches. If you just take soccer or basketball, there are hundreds and thousands of coaches. And how are you going to be, I suppose, creating that distinct feature about your service? So that's why you need to have a very clear-cut message, and of course, you need to have what in some businesses they call it the elevator pitch, right? Or what you stand for. So these are the kind of things that I teach in the program, where when out and about, or you are in a let's say a networking session or even a party, and somebody comes up to you, say, well, what do you do? And if you just turn up and say, hey, you know what, I'm a sports coach, all right, next, right? But if you say if you're ultra specific, and this is what I teach, like I am a soccer coach that I help kids age 12 to 16, elite players 12 age to 16, increase their strength in 90 days. So you're being ultra specific. I always talk about, there's a formula where I teach. It's called TA equals to C plus T plus M. All right, I explained that. It's a bit too. Okay. It's a lot. TA means target audience, which equals to currency. Currency means what are you bringing to the marketplace? Is it at the end of the day, somebody's buying something for you? That's a trade, right? So people are not just going to come and say that, hey, train my kids, or train me for what? If you're a coach, if you're a fitness coach, is it weight loss? Is it muscle gain? If you are a soccer coach, is it skills? What are you doing? So that currency has to be very, very clear in your business. So that's what I call currency. And then the T represents, M comes first before the T, which is the matrix. What are they exactly buying from you? The more specific you can be, the better it's for you. So one of my students, like I talked about you just earlier on, I told you about being in Canada. He really struggled with this $1 million message. So I worked with him, and he basically broke down his sessions, what he really does, talked about his currency and the matrix. So we came up with this, that if somebody worked with him for 90 days, they can actually double their strength. Right. So that's what parents were looking for kids between 12 to 15. Exactly. Something that is tangible, something. And then that's the matrix. And the T is timeline. Right. So what I do is that I really encourage sports coaches to work in windows of 90 days. There's a reason behind that, why we do 90 days, so that your programs then can be escalated. So every 90 days, and you're selling your business in block of 90 days, and you don't have to worry about cash flow. You're not looking for new customers every month. So you're locking your customers in for 90 days. You're giving them the results thereafter, because you have the currency to offer. So this is one of the small things that really, what they call small hinges, they open up big doors, or, so these are the small hinges in your business that you got to get right. And that's one of the things, very first thing that we do. Besides that, we also look at a lot of the coaches, they have all their knowledge, all the information in their heads, but they can't roll it out they can't unpack their own intellectual property. They really struggle. Right. That's one of the biggest things. You're a really good trainer, you're a good coach, but the thing you can't do is you can't articulate it into a paper. So I had this, one of my students had a problem in Manchester, right? So he was a goalkeeper coach, and he had a goalkeeper academy. Just maybe about 50 meters down the road, there was another goalkeeper academy. So he was like, how do I distinguish, right? So that's when we worked with him. There was a simple thing we call the signature solution in your business. We, we break it down to say, okay, what are the simple steps? If somebody came to you, what are the steps that would take for them to get from a place of uncertainty to certainty, right? If they're looking for strength, or they're looking to weight loss, what are the steps involved? So we have step-by-step frameworks to get you to unpack your intellectual property into a system. Then we put a fancy name around it. We call it a blueprint, we call it a strategy, we call it a playbook, or a formula, like I have with my formula. And then we create, that's your intellectual property. The more people that go through that system and it works, the more value you create for that. So at the end of the day, now what you have is something that's different from the guy down the road. So these are the simple steps that we put into the whole program, in what I call the sports business mentorship program. And we've seen people, as soon as they get the signature solution right, they get the message right, they go to the marketplace, money starts to flow.
Right. Well, you've said a couple of things there I think are real important. And one of the things that we're a big believer on as well is that really defining your market. Because if you look at Soccer Pro, for example, it could really be called All Sports Pro because, video is video, scheduling is scheduling. Soccer Labs could be Athlete Labs, right? It's the same thing. We could have taken the athlete part of it because a Vertimax is going to improve the speed of any athlete, and every athlete needs more speed. So there's certain things that are defined, but the benefits are, one, people understand who you are and what you offer. There's your defined formula, right? People can go to a lot of places for speed work. They can go to a lot of places for sports software, but if they're in soccer and they want to be the best soccer player, they come to Soccer Labs. If you want to have the best soccer software, you come to Soccer Pro. If you want to have, let's say, software for football, well, we don't try to do that. Now, the second thing that we found when we take this isolation, when we really focus on just one defined aspect of our business, is that it helps us simplify our business. So instead of trying to be all speed for all athletes or to be all software for all sports, we can just say, well, does a soccer player want that? Yes or no? Okay. And then we just put that in. When we have our facility, we have some things that are just specific for soccer players that you probably wouldn't have dedicated that real estate in your facility for that specific person if you were trying to be an all athletes pro. So that definition it does two really great things. One, it defines to the customer what you offer. And then second thing is it defines what you should be doing internally in your business. So it really makes a big difference. Now, the second thing you talked about was, this whole specialization of the coaches. They're very good at coaching, but they don't have time or maybe an expertise in creating the sales funnels. They don't have the expertise in creating the ads. They don't have the expertise in automating their whole sales process. And it sounds like to me, what you're saying is that's where you come in. They have the coaching expertise. They are really great with the customers. They know how to get someone to be able to run faster, jump higher, or lift more weights, or kick a soccer ball better, but they don't know how to do that other part to get that person coming in the door. So what I'm hearing is that's where you start to come in.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary, because I tell you what, like I said, you can't be an expert in everything, right? You can't possibly know everything there is to running a business. Entrepreneurship doesn't work like that. You have your own blind spots. That's where I come in and I say, okay, you're a great coach. Can I then now empower you with these tools to take your business to the next level? How do I do that? So getting the message, like I said earlier, creating your own signature solution is one. One of the other biggest thing, right? Sports coaches, as you probably would know this, they're notorious for not wanting to do sales. They don't see themselves as salespeople. But as you know, that is the lifeline of any business. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's the first skill that you really need to know. How do you convince people, and how do you actually make the sale? But I also know that people, sports coaches are shy. They don't want to be seen as the guy that's pushy. So I've created another easy framework. Like, how can we then now take the knowledge you have, unpack it? How can you now then put it out to the world in a way that we are educating the marketplace rather than trying to sell them something? We're not saying that sell something. So people tend to buy from someone who educates them rather than trying to push something onto them. So we see some common, again, I really encourage, and I always get a lot of the sports coaches to do, is put some sort of a report together. Like if let's list down the 10 best things that you do that someone can take away right now and execute in their life. Can you add value like that? So there's a bit of an exercise that goes behind it, something what we call a lead magnet, just to get people to put up their hand and say,
you work with.
Exactly.
But you help them define that, right? That's
exactly
part of what you're doing with the program.
Yeah.
Because that can be hard. Sometimes looking at your business is very difficult because you see it one way. You need somebody that you can kick it back and forth with so that they see it as a customer. You see it as the internal owner. It's very difficult to reverse that role and pretend you're a customer. And that's where having someone, consulting makes a huge difference, because you're going to look at their business as the outsider, not the insider.
I tell you what, one of the biggest things that I've seen a lot of the sports coaches who work with me, obviously at the beginning, they kind of like are hesitant because they're like, we barely scraping by, and now you've come along and you say you got to invest more in your business and stuff like that. But then you have the same question, conversation. Fast forward, like in a couple of weeks, they go like, "Oh my God, this is the best decision we ever made. We were on the brink of going out of business, and you came along to save our business." I basically have not saved anyone. What I did was ask the right questions, give you the right tools to do the work that you do best. That's what I suppose this sort of things. Let's talk about Roger Federer. Roger Federer is the best tennis player in the world, but he's got a coach too, right? Yep. He has a coach because he's got blind spots too. You need somebody from the outside to tell you exactly how to play the game, even though you're the best player in the world. Another great example is if you are the best tattoo artist in the world, you can't give yourself the best tattoo in the world. You just can't do that, right?
No.
So I suppose these are the things that a lot of people need to get past. And the moment they have the breakthrough, the way they think and saying that the way they approach the business, that's when truly the business starts getting to 5, 6, 7 figures.
Right. Well, interesting thing, we have another business, CloudNet 360. It's our small business sales automation system. We do a lot of marketing and content creation for our customers. But when we do our own website, we don't even do it. Even though we have a whole system that provides websites and templates, and we do design work for other people, when it comes to our own website, we hire that out. And people think that's insane, but we actually had multiple things where the outsider came back to us and we're like, oh my God, that's terrible, And then we would say, okay, well, why did we hire this person if we're going to reject their ideas?
Yeah.
And then we would begrudgingly accept their ideas, even though it went against our grain. And it turns out that some of those ideas were some of the best things for our business. Like even a logo change. We so objected to the logo change, but then when we put it in, after a while, we look back at our old logo and go, God, that old logo was horrible. What were we thinking when we created that? So it's just so important to get that outside set of eyes. And it's not even that someone's smarter, better, whatever.
No, absolutely not.
Roger Federer, nobody's better than him, but they can see things that he can't see, and there's so much value in a coach.
And I tell you what, I think the biggest gift that I can actually help with sports coaches is something called sales, right? Because a lot of the other stuff they kind of figure out on their own, but when it comes to sales, a lot of people freeze up. You know that too. Like getting on a call and talking to someone that you don't know can be daunting. So what I've done is that I've actually given them some sort of guidelines to follow. And right at the end, all they need to do is ask the potential client one question, which will then get them to start pitching themselves to the sports coach, which is quite revolutionary in many ways. It's actually common sense. I didn't reinvent the wheel or anything, but it's just the way psychology. We all know this. Sales is a bit of psychology. I'm not asking you to manipulate anyone. It's
right.
Very far from that. It's just asking sequence of questions that will then put you and frame you in a way that you are an expert. You're here to give a specific result, and that's why they're hiring you.
Okay, but you have a system, I'm assuming, based on, I've seen your flow chart before, that gets people from, let's say, a cold opportunity into a warm opportunity into them actually calling in. So it's not like the coaches have to get on the phone and start cold calling or creating leads. The leads are coming into them, right?
Absolutely. I think, one of the biggest things that a lot of sports coaches struggle is if you don't define yourself, like you said earlier, if you don't define who your target audience are, you can't find them because it's so broad, right? So if you say I'm specialist with kids, right? Let's say you're dealing with kids from 12 to 16, and that marketplace, a lot of the time the parents make the decision. So that you are actually selling to the parents, not the kids, right? Because they, as long as the parents are paying for it, they are the decision makers in some ways. So if you create let's take one of my students, for example, Paul, like he said, he does football strength work. So we created a report that he put together from information. Obviously, some of his information it's proprietary, but a lot of it is found on the internet. But he just aggregated everything into a report, and the headline basically said 10 simple exercises parents should know. Well, if you're a parent with soccer players age need to know today, right? So that was the headlines. It was a very catchy at the hook, and he dropped it into some Facebook groups where parents hang out.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, a couple of parents put up their hand and say, "Hey, I want a piece of this report." So what happened is that then he started the conversation with them, because instead of being a pest trying to do cold outreach and say, "Hey, I'm a coach, you want to work with me?" What he's done is actually reversed it. He educated people and say, "Hey, who wants this?" Right? People put up their hand and say, I'm interested. So you became part of the conversation rather than, trying to impose yourself in that. So these are simple strategies that we use. Like I said, the headlines of the lead magnet must be crying out again to the people that you want to attract, and just get people to put up their hand. And once we created this report, coming back to what happened with one of my students, he just put $5 on Facebook just to boost it around the geography. You talked about geography. He just went 5 miles from where he is, and just targeting those people with the same demographics that he's had in mind that we helped him define. All of a sudden, a couple of leads popped up and say, "I want it." Got on the call with them, followed the same script. They came, and one of the one of the things that I always tell my sports coaches is that let people test drive your service, which is really, really important, right? Let them test drive, because unless you're a big name, even if you're a big name in your town, in your city, wherever you are in your country, I would suggest let people test drive. Get them through the door or wherever you're doing a message. And as soon as they see you face to face, but on the phone call, you would have already framed them. And if you did a right enough job, our conversion with all our sports coaches, when they actually come to what we call a free trial, free assessment, is up to about 80%, which is a very high conversion, right?
So very high.
Yeah, very high. So, and that's what we do. So you can think of it as a process and get somebody. I don't like to call it leads because they are humans, so we call it prospects. So the prospects that say, put up the hand and say, "Hey, I'm interested in what you're doing," from talking to them on the phone call and coming for that free trial, or what we call, the first interaction they're coming through, from that to conversion, anywhere between 50 to 80%. That's pretty good. So we try and do that. I call it the first to 20. So a race to 20 rather. So I try and get 20 people through the door, and then you work out the conversions.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm assuming then you're doing this, you already said that you're doing it with targeted geographic ads in Facebook. Are you doing anything, let's say, let me bring up one other thing with SEO. Okay. If you're doing SEO, search engine optimization, I should say, and you want to get on the first page of Google, one other thing you got to keep in mind is, because this type of business is geographic, your search results become geographic. So you might not be on the first page of Google if you are searching in California for, let's call it, best indoor soccer coach. Okay. But if you are in our geographic area and you put in best indoor soccer facility, all of a sudden we'll be on the first page. We'll be at the very top, and there might be 2-3 results. So that's another strategy you can implement, is you can do the search engine optimization. You can do Facebook ads. You can do these other social media techniques to automate those prospects coming to you and calling you versus you calling them. So, again, we all run out of time, and these are different ways that you can automate your business so you don't have to make those phone calls, and you're only actually talking to the people that are already through the process of your advertisement. They've seen your website, they've seen your videos on your website or on YouTube or whatever, and now they're really hungry to come in, and all they need is that last conversation to find out, oh, I can come in for free. That's fantastic.
Just a word of caution there, Gary. I'm sorry, because I think it's important for any sports coach watching this, right? Because stuff like Facebook advertising, stuff like SEO, search engine optimization, can be daunting for people who are not technically savvy. Let's be honest, right? How do you now, create that
Actually,
headline?
I'm sorry, I may have given the wrong impression. I wasn't implying that they should do it. I think they should stay in their lane, just like I like to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
If we all focus on what we do well, and then bring in someone else to do the other parts, it makes everything go so much smoother. And I was just kind of getting back to the point where you help these guys with those different things. Sometimes search engine optimization got a bad reputation because it's so hard. You know, when you're a national brand or a world brand, it's millions of dollars. But what I was getting at, for small guys in a small geographic area, you can realistically add that into your portfolio of geographically targeted advertisements that you don't have to do, that you can get someone to help you with. But you don't want to try and take it on yourself. It's still tricky.
Exactly. And even, one of the things that I actually, advocate a lot is that actually, if you're starting out, if your revenue is anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000, I would urge you not to spend money on search engine. What I would say is that be very tactical with what you really do. And I think search engine can come later on. And especially if you're creating a lot of content, the way we teach you to create content, especially, remember we talked about lead magnets and stuff like that. And if you follow our framework again, you will basically be sticking to your signature solution and talking and doing content, everything about your service. And the way we get you to break down step 1, step 2, step 3. So you just, everything that you create, all content you create sits within your signature solution. So what really happens is that inevitably you create that search engine optimization juice, because by the sheer fact that you are now creating content. Right. So what I would say is that, unless you're, pulling in more than 5,000 to about 10,000, you can experiment with that. But what I really teach, or what we teach at Sports Business Mentor, is grow organically, make sure that we really capture what's there. What can we do organically to get you to, say, maybe $5,000 to $7,000, $8,000, $9,000? And the real idea is to get you to 20,000 in 90 days. Then you have some money. You think about, if you put away 20% of what you pull in 20,000, and then put that back into, like the stuff you said, search engine, Facebook advertising, then you truly then pour a bit of, I suppose, fuel in the fire, and then, you take off, right?
Yeah. And also the other part is the financial formula. When you start talking about going from 7 or 5 to 7,000, usually you have a fixed based cost, whether you're renting a facility and you have 5 people you're training, or whether you have 10 people, typically your base cost is going to be the same. Your fixed cost is going to be the same. So when you go from 5,000 to 7,000, you may only be adding $2,000 more into your revenue, but you might be doubling or tripling your profit margin, because the other part is consumed by your fixed cost. So that jump from 5 to 7 can be, a massive jump in actual in-pocket revenue. And it's really important, when you look at it that way. You can't just look at it as, $2,000 more, because again, it might be a doubling or tripling of your net profit off that activity.
I tell you what, Gary, it's a good point that you brought up. One of the early foundation works we actually do is, I call something called reverse the numbers. With the sports coaches, I always ask them, what's the ideal income that you want to pull in from a month to month, right? Some of them say, yeah, I like $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. Now we ask, okay, let's reverse engineer those numbers. What do you need to do? If that's what our belief is, then what do we need to get to that, right? And sometimes a lot of these sports coaches don't even know what is their fixed cost. They don't know what their variable cost is, because all they want to do is just coach, right? So again, using simple frameworks, simple steps, and say, okay, is 3 to 5K or 7K, is that gross or net? Is that after costs or is that before costs? So, or tax for the matter. In the US as well, you guys pay different tax, over there as compared to this part of the world. So the foundation work is so key, especially when it comes to sports coaching, that very little is actually given to that. People don't spend enough time thinking about that. So part of the work we do is to make sure that you get the numbers right. This is all part of the foundation. If you want to build a house, make sure your foundation is strong. If you want to build a business, make sure your numbers are right. We all know that. So making sure that they know there's a tangible target, know exactly what goes into cost, what is net profit afterwards. And these are the stuff that's really important, really, really important fundamental work that we do with a lot of the sports coaches in our program.
Right. I want to go back to one other point is, coaches are typically very good at coaching. They don't really want to do that other stuff. And frankly, I don't think they should do it. I mean, if you're a coach and you're bringing in money because you're developing kids, you're training kids or athletes, let's just say, and you're sitting in your office, that's not making money. So that's just pure cost. What they have to do is start looking at it and say, look, I'm spending 10 hours a week running the business aspect of it, or trying to get these ads set up, or trying to figure this part of my business out. Well, that's 10 hours they should have been out training, bringing in more revenue. And as long as they can bring in more revenue, that exceeds the cost of having someone else help with doing the Facebook ads, help with doing, these other business aspects that you're able to help them with. That's the way they also have to look at it, is just, hey, I only want a coach, and that's a good thing, because that's where I make all my money. That's where the high profit margins come in. And let's face it, in service business, when people are there, you're making a lot of money. When they're not there, you're not making any money. And that's the challenge. So, they got to think about a little different of just what's the cost. It's not what the cost is. It's how much am I paying already for not being out on the field with my other customers that I could have if I weren't sitting in this office right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that we also do to mitigate that, Gary, we try and let technology do the heavy lifting, right? So we try and automate things. You know that really well, from your background as a tech guy. We do simple things like, we want to keep the tech as simple as possible for the sports coaches without the overwhelm, right? So there are a lot of software like MailChimp. So we create a simple funnel. Like if somebody picked up a lead magnet from me, where do they go next? Then when they go there, do I have a nurture system? Because not everyone that lands on your page or picks up the lead magnet is ready to buy from you. But what happens, because you already, spend that time and effort getting in front of them. So typically, some people take more than 7 or 8 different touch points for them to start to believe, build up the trust, and say, maybe, you know what, this guy, he's been talking to me, we're having a conversation. Maybe I will take him up on his free offer. So there needs to be some sort of system that's doing the heavy lifting, even while you're sleeping, so that, that prospects, they go through the system and eventually book a call with you or book a free trial with you.
Right.
At scale. I think this is something that, a lot of sports coaches that I've spoken to around the world haven't got in their system. So like you said, sitting in the office is costing you a lot of time. But if you let technology do the heavy lifting, I think you're in a safe place.
You never get rid of it 100%. You're always in the office a little bit, but the less you can be in the office and the more you can be generating revenue, the more successful you're going to be. It's a simple formula.
Yep.
So how does, if someone says, hey, look, I've got this business, I want to start a training business, I want to do it, I haven't done it before, I'd like to give it a crack. Or you've got someone else that already has a business and they're finding out that it's a little bit more daunting than they'd like. What's the way that people get in touch with you, or what's the first steps that they take in order to start getting some help in putting your system into play?
So, we'll link up, I'll give away a free template. Obviously, my sports coaching business formula. They can have a look at that. They can download that and, have a look at what the systems that I involve. And if they, obviously we'll put the link to it. But if they want to probably jump the gun a little bit, they can go and visit www.sportsbusinessmentor.com. And when you land on the landing page, what you'll see is that right at the top, I've got the free magnet that, in the sense that that report is there. So if you put in your details, we'll shoot you the details. Have a look. There's a video that will explain to you exactly how that works. And then if you feel that, you need a bit more help, there are some folks that, once you give them that, they have enough information to take it and do it themselves, which is fine, right? Some people try and figure that out. But if you can't, and if you want to go a little bit faster, you can always get in touch with me. My email is mentor@sportsbusinessmentor.com. And, write to me and say, hey, you know what, Sasi, I want to get on one of those strategy sessions. I do a couple a week. And what I do is that's completely free. I will dissect your business to see where the gaps are, where the blind spots are. I'll give you some suggestion. And if we are a good fit, we work together. Otherwise, you got someone, 20 years in the business, give you a free consult for 15, 20 minutes.
Oftentimes you will learn things in a 15 to 20-minute conversation that'll take you so many hours to figure out on your own, if you ever figure it out. I mean, some things you just never get.
Yeah. Gary, if I can go back in time, when I first started my business, if the first thing I would have done is hired a mentor, I would have gone faster.
Yeah. Well, it's that old story. I think and there's different artists that get attributed to it, but basically they're sitting at a cafe and they're sketching out on a napkin, a little drawing. And a woman says, "Wow, that's an amazing drawing. Can I buy that from you?" And the guy says, "Sure." And she goes, "How much?" And he goes, $10,000. And she goes, $10,000? I just saw you sketching that while you were drinking your coffee. He goes, but it took me a lifetime to learn how to sketch it while I'm drinking my coffee.
Yeah.
And there's different versions of that story, but it's really true. Even my personal experience, when I started, I thought, I'm going to learn how to do my own website. And I learned how to do some coding. And it took me 3 months to not finish the first page of a website called Saving Scene. And I still keep the URL just out of nostalgia, but savingscene.com. And 3 months later, I still never finished it. I finally did learn how to code properly. And I could do that page now in less than an hour. When you know how to do it, it's easy. Okay. You can make it look easy. You can make it be fast. But when you don't know how to do it, it can make you want to just bang your head on the desk. And, it's amazing. So anyhow, I'll stop talking because I can go on with those stories. I've seen it so often, especially with our other business. People struggle. And they just don't get off the starting block. If you want to get off the starting block, the fastest way is to get someone to give you that little bit of help. We don't get into sports without a coach. Why do you get into business without a coach?
Or sports coaching business without a coach.
Yeah, exactly. That is, I didn't even think about that, but that's a funny connection because here you are selling your service to help the other person, but you won't take on a coach yourself.
Yeah, I think it all starts with being able, being coachable yourself, right? I mean, that's the way the universe works. If you want to be a good client, be a good client yourself. If you want to be a good student, and be a good student or teacher, whatever. So one of the things that I've seen, the people who get a lot of success are the people that are willing to learn. They're willing to invest in themselves. Because if you find a right coach and you invest, obviously investments are, not easy. Sometimes when you want to part with money. But if you find the right coach and you vibe with the right coach, that sort of investment, comes back tenfold. I've spent I don't know how much on coaching myself, and I'm 20 years in the business, so I find a coach to help me too. Like even till today, I have a coach I have a mentor that tells me where to go about doing stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that if you want to get there faster, talk to somebody who's actually been there. Success leaves clues, right? So I still find it weird when people try and figure things out themselves, which you really don't have to.
Okay, so the mission, I want to just circle back to the beginning, because the mission is really 20K in 90 days or less. That's what your mission is with these guys.
That's right.
And how many people out of the folks that have gone through your program, how many people have not been able to meet the goal that followed the steps you gave them?
When you follow the steps, I can almost guarantee that you will get there. The folks who have actually not got there are the guys that try and short circuit it, and they don't actually do the work, and they think that things are going to happen miraculously because they had a chat with me. No, it's not going to happen, right? So this is not one of those get quick, rich scheme kind of stuff that you don't have to do the work because you're talking to me. No, it doesn't work like that. The people who really profit are the ones that take the advice, they take the advice and they actually implement that advice. Those are the wise folks that actually see things happen. Just before this show, I was telling you, I've got a student in Belgium on just one weekend with one strategy that I taught him. He put 17,000 euros into his soccer coaching business because he did the work. Yeah. And in the process, he lost 10 kg. He wanted to lose weight. And he lost because one part of the work is that we work on mindsets, which is very important, because I think if you're not set up properly to be an entrepreneur, if you're not, set up properly to do the hard work, because a lot of people quit. The first challenge they find and they quit because one of the strategies didn't work, or I woke up, feeling bad and I couldn't work. These things happen to us. The ones that actually find success are people who are consistent. consistency, as we all know, is the most important thing in sport, right? In anything we do. So hardly I've come across anyone. I've had few guys that, they try bits and pieces. They take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and like anything, you can't get 100% hit rate on whatever you do. But if you do the work, I can guarantee you, almost guarantee you, that you hit the numbers. Some don't hit 20K, they get 15, 17K, they're thereabouts, right? Definitely something more than what they invested in the program. Let's not forget, they never saw their numbers in their business ever since they started.
Right.
Right.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
And there's another couple things that I want to bring up, because we are in similar industries. So, I might be speaking for you, but I'm going to say it anyhow, and then you can correct me if I'm not accurate. What we find with our customers, again, because we have the CloudNet 360 business, right? So we have a lot of small businesses that come through our system, a lot of startups. And what I always try to emphasize to people is, look, you're going to do the work, but because you're doing it in a funnel with a lead magnet and all those other things, you're going to do it once, maybe twice, but you're not going to do it every day. So when he's talking about doing more work, he's not talking about every single day you have to add another half hour to your schedule or another hour. It's you get it done and then you let it run. So done and run, okay? And then it's hands off. Now, the second thing is that you don't have to do everything on day one, okay? Everything is incrementally added. And he talked about this earlier with the videos, where you do a video piece. Well, you're not going to have 100 videos on day one, but you're going to take a training session and make a video. Boom, now you have one. Now, maybe you don't have time for the next week, but the next week you're going to do another video. And the next week you're going to do another video. And by the end of the year, you're going to have 52 quality videos about your training system up on your YouTube channel, up on your website, into your sales funnel, adding to your lead magnet credibility, and all those other things that are going to be in your automated system. So it really is something that if you start, you'll get benefit immediately, not as much as a year down the road when it's building on itself, but you will get benefit immediately, and then you'll get more benefit the more you do. But you don't have to do it over and over and over again. And I think that's a really important point, because you're one person, or maybe two people, usually a small business. You don't have that time, right? Focus on what you do well, get help from the outside, and then recognize that automation is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you after you set it up, and then just let it run.
Yeah, you're spot on, Gary. So, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you say you architect it once, then you let it run, right? And when things get a little bit jaded or a bit outdated, then what you do is you just improve on what you've already done. You talk about the compounding effect, right? People don't think about it, but when you put so much content out there, in the sense that you're doing it with the framework, step by step, not with the overwhelm. In fact, all the information that I'm asking you to go and find, it's all out there in the internet. Of course, we don't encourage plagiarism, but if you can put your own touch to it, and it will teach you exactly how to do it. And once you put that out, it starts to compound, right? So if you are going to be in the business for a long term, this is exactly what you need to be doing, bit by bit, day by day. But it all ends up being a big machinery that works for you while you're sleeping.
Yeah, and that's the key. I mean, it's so important. Well, Sasi, go ahead and just one more time, if you could just tell us how to get a hold of you if they want to get started with your program. And even if they don't go forward, just to have that first conversation.
Yeah. So you can email me directly at mentor@sportsbusinessmentor.com. Right. That's, if you want to have a conversation with me, because, you're part of Gary's community, I'm willing to open up 15 to 20 minutes in my calendar. I have limited slots of that on a weekly basis. But if you want to hit me up, fine. We'll have this, what we call a discovery or a strategy session. But for some of you who might not want to start there, go onto my website, www.sportsbusinessmentor.com. That framework that I'm talking about, it's there. When you go on the landing page, you just put in your details, it'll be emailed to you. So you can have a look at that. There'll be a video that will be accompanying that and actually telling you exactly how to go about doing it. Like I said, you can take that information, go and execute it. I'll be more than happy. I'll be really happy if you find some success. Let us know as well. But if you want to go faster and you need a bit of help, then email me at mentor@sportsbusinessmentor.com. and then we can talk. Because a lot of the folks, it's a percentage game. Out of 10 calls I have, 2 or 3 folks who might feel that, hey, you know what, we need the help, we want to work with you. After the call, you don't want to do that, that's fine with us as well, because we know that we can really add value to the people who really want to go faster, don't want to waste time trying to experiment and deal with those things themselves. They want to get on the highway, and we help them.
And when was the last time you invested $50 and got $3,000 back? I mean, that's an impressive story.
No, I must say that he done really, really well. He followed the system and he executed to the T, and that's what we teach and we highly encourage. And if you go to the Facebook page of sportsbusinessmentor.com, or on Facebook, just find Sports Business Mentor, and you'll see that I post all the testimonials and stuff like that, screenshots of success from my students. And it's a great feeling, because I'm in Singapore, they're in Canada, all over the world. When I get up and I see those messages coming through, that really makes my day. It really makes me want to help a lot more people out there. And I know especially with what we are going through in the world now with the pandemic, people really worried about their business, locked down here and there. Just be smart. Let's work smart. Let's come together. Let's all apply our brains and help each other out and say, how can we we all love sport. That's why we are here, right? And how can we bring the best value, be the best version of ourselves? And of course, at the end of the day, how can we give the best results to our clients so that our business, our brand just starts growing?
Right. And you can't give good results if you're not in business. So
yeah, exactly.
You always got to think of that too. You got to survive. Well, Sasi, I really do appreciate you taking time out today and talking to us and explaining how you can put this automation into your business and be a more successful trainer, private coach, small gym owner. And hopefully we can get back and talk about more topics. There's a wealth of information that I know you have, and we can start going deeper into different topics. So hopefully we can get you back on one of these calls in the not too distant future.
Yeah,
thanks again for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Real pleasure. And opening up this information to your community as well. It looks like you have a really strong and vibrant community there, and hopefully they got some value. And like I always said, take the information, go and execute. The real power is in the execution, not just in information gathering mode. Go out there and do some great to the world. Thanks, Gary. Thanks once again.